presentation is going to be on wildland fire, PPE, and safety, and it's going to be from Wildland Firefighting Practices book by Joseph D. Lau. It's on chapter 3, so I'd have the students follow along and while I go through my PowerPoint. So let's get started. Safety importance. Personal safety and the safety of the crew should be the prime consideration when operating on wildland fire. Wildland-urban interface is the line, area, or zone where structures and other human development meet or intermingle with undeveloped wildland vegetative fuels. PPE gear. Helmet and shroud, goggles, Nomex shirt, long sleeve t-shirt, Nomex pants, gloves, boots, web gear, and that includes your fire shelter and canteens, cotton undergarments, and cotton socks. The fire shelter. The fire shelter is the most important piece of the fire safety equipment a firefighter carries. It works primarily by reflecting radiant heat, and it reflects 95% of this radiant heat. It will melt at approximately 1200 degrees Fahrenheit. Static deployment is done in standing place, and a dynamic deployment is done on the run. Ideally, it's laid on a clear surface with minimal vegetation. You step into the fire shelter, lay face down on the ground, seal all the flaps, your face should be covered, and an airway should be protected. The fire shelter is your last resort. It is not a guarantee of safety. Alright, now I would administer the quiz. Number 1. List 3 items of clothing gear acceptable for wildland firefighting. Number 2. Personal protective clothing can be reused if holes or tears exist. True or false? 3. Define the wildland-urban interface. 4. What are the 2 ways to deploy your fire shelter? 5. At what temperature will a fire shelter melt? 1100 degrees Fahrenheit, 1450 degrees Fahrenheit, 1350 degrees Fahrenheit, or 1200 degrees Fahrenheit? Fire behavior watchouts. A chimney is a step drainage on the side of a mountain. This terrain feature channels all the convective energy of the fire and is responsible for rapid rates of fire spread. A saddle is a low topography point between 2 high points in a mountain range. Saddles are points of at least resistance for winds and convective energy. Narrow canyon is a terrain feature that requires great care. 2 canyon walls are close together that fire spotting can easily occur, trapping firefighters. A box canyon is areas where intense updrafts occur. Steep walls force the convective column aloft, usually one way and in and one way out. Watchouts continued. A mid-slope road is a road that has unburned fuel above and below. Potential for fire spotting and becoming trapped between 2 bodies of fire. Eddy effect is when wind blowing across the mountaintop, a rolling effect can take place on the lee side, the side away from the wind, on the mountain. Danger and spotting can occur below the lee side of the ridge, opposite the main fire. Thunderheads are a violent local storm produced by cumulonimbus clouds. The danger to firefighters is the downwinds and erratic winds that drive the fire in many directions. Frontal passage is a boundary between 2 air masses with increased winds. Taking care of yourself. Situation awareness. You should always observe fire behaviors, weather changes, safety zones, and location of crew members. Heat stress are injuries caused by heat and exhaustion. Hydrate before and during your work assignment. Heat cramps. Heat cramps are muscle cramps from lack of fitness. Heat exhaustion is overexposure to sun and heat. Dehydration exhaustion, failure to hydrate. And heat stroke, a serious medical emergency that is caused by total collapse of the body's temperature regulating mechanism. Taking care of yourself continued. Carbon monoxide poisoning is a result of combustion, forest fuels, or the burning of gas and oil in an internal combustion engine. Fatigue affects firefighters by reducing their alertness and situational awareness. Take necessary rests, breaks, and speak up if exhausted. Physical fitness. Being in good physical condition is an important factor in wildland firefighting. Attitude. Positive attitude can make the difference between successful and failure in difficult situations. All human beings make mistakes. However, the lesson is what is learned from them. Fire orders. Fire orders is an acronym used to keep firefighter situation awareness up. F. Fight fire aggressively, but provide safety first. I. Initiate all actions based on current and expected fire behavior. R. Recognize current weather conditions and obtain forecasts. E. Ensure instructions are given and understood. O. Obtain current information on the fire status. R. Remain in communications with crew members, supervisors, and adjacent or adjoining forces. D. Determine safety zones and escape routes. E. Establish lookouts in potential hazardous situations. R. Retain control at all times. And S. Stay alert, keep calm, think clearly, and act decisively. 18 situations that shout watch out. The fire has not been scouted and sized up. 2. You're in country that you have not seen in daylight. 3. Safety zones and escape routes are not identified. 4. You are unfamiliar with local weather and other factors that may influence fire behavior. 5. You are uninformed on strategy, tactics, and hazards. 6. Instruction and assignments you were given are not clear. 7. You have no communication with crew or supervisor. 8. You are constructing fire line without a safe anchor point. 9. You are building fire line downhill and there is a fire below you. Watch out, continued. 10. You are attempting a frontal assault on the fire. 11. There is unburned fuel between you and the fire. 12. You cannot see the main fire and are not in contact with anyone who can. 13. You're on a hillside where rolling material can ignite the fuel below you. 14. The weather is getting hotter and drier. 15. The wind is increasing or changing directions. 16. You are getting frequent spot fires across the line. 17. Terrain and fuels make escape to your safety zones difficult. 18. You feel like taking a nap near the fire line. Laces. Laces is a mnemonic device developed by Paul Gleason, a former hotshot superintendent. L is for lookouts, a person designated to detect and report fires from a vantage point. C is for communication, an exchange of thoughts, messages, or information that is key to the successful outcome on a wildland fire. E is for escape routes, pre-planned and understood routes firefighters take to move to a safe zone or other low-risk areas. S is for safety zone, an area cleared of flammable materials used for escape in the event the line is outflanked or in case of a spot fire causes fuels outside the contained control line to render the line unsafe. Then I would administer the exam. 1. What is not part of a wildland firefighting PPE? Web gear, fire shelter and canteens, SCBA, helmet and shroud, Nomex or fire-resistant cotton pants. Number 2. What is the difference between a chimney and a saddle? Number 3. How much radiant heat does a fire shelter reflect? 4. What is not part of laces? Locations, communications, escape routes, or safe zones. And 5. List 3 of 10 fire orders, of the 10 fire orders. And then I would administer a practical exercise. I'd have each student try on wildland gear, and then while wearing that gear, perform a static deployment of a fire shelter. So they'd wear their helmet and shroud, gloves, Nomex pants, gloves or goggles, boots, and their web gear. While wearing that, I would have them deploy their fire shelter, and I would grade them on how fast they do it. They do it correctly, and if they did it correctly. And finally, I I would pass out the attendance sheet and have everyone sign it who showed up after they completed their practical exercise. And that would be the end of the class. Thanks.